Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. I got an action-packed show today leading up to the Super Bowl, so we're probably going to be all over the board. Before we get into some of the other topics, because I have some video game talk off the top of the show, I want to talk about the Steelers quick. There are rumors out there that Ben wants to come back, and the Steelers might not be able to make it work. I don't know if that's a hint that they're talking specifically about his contract and not being able to make it work. I have a feeling that it's kind of looking at what Detroit did with Stafford, and I know Stafford's much younger, but they were able to move him and get an incredible deal. So, and I had been hinting that, the Steelers should go after Stafford. They should push Roethlisberger out and go after Stafford. They never would have been able to get him at this price. So the Rams got Stafford, and then Detroit received Jared Goff, who's a young quarterback. He played injured in the playoffs and still looked pretty good. Then they got 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick. The 2 first-round picks, I think, are in the future. I think the third-round pick is this year, although the deal can't become official until after Super Bowl's over and the new year starts in March. So I don't think it can really fall through, but we'll see if there's any changes. But that's just an outrageous deal for the Lions and something that their franchise needed. Because I know a lot of fans are probably like, oh, we should just keep on Stafford. He might be able to get it done if we keep getting him guys. It felt very similar to what Phillip Rivers did in Los Angeles or whatever, the Chargers, where they're located, San Diego. What's a new one? Los Angeles?
Yeah.
So it was similar to that for me, where they kept saying like, oh, he had a chance. I think he had him in the playoffs, maybe not. But they were close a few years. Couldn't get past that. And then after a while, sometimes you just need fresh blood. You need someone that can come in. Like someone told me that it wasn't the Buccaneers owner that made the comment about Tom Brady being one guy that changed it around. It was Bruce Arians. I don't know. I wasn't. There were so many guys on the stand. I just figured it was the owner. So if I'm wrong on that, let it be. But the statement still stands because the Buccaneers hadn't been in the playoffs for decades. So they're coming in, and one guy's turning it around. Maybe it will work out in both teams' favor. The Rams have been knocking on the door. They went to a Super Bowl, couldn't score points. They have a good defense. They're pretty much betting on their defense now at this point. But the Steelers could do something like that with Roethlisberger. It's going to be tougher, and they're not going to get the return. But there are some rumors out there that they might go after Deshaun Watson because he wants out. And when a player wants out that desperately, you might be able to do a trade like this. So, long intro, but what are your thoughts on some move like that, Matt?
I have mixed feelings. I mean, depending on how much they were to give away, to acquire a player like Deshaun Watson, I think it would be worth it, as long as they're not having to give up what the Rams ended up giving up. Because I just don't think that successful teams can really consistently win if you're giving away that many draft picks. Because the better teams in recent memory have been built through the draft. And signing one player isn't going to necessarily make or break a team. Now, you can argue that with Tampa Bay, they signed Brady in the...
Looks like Matt dropped off. So we'll get him back on here. Let's see. Yeah, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You want to pick up?
Yeah, but I just think to get a player like Watson and then to be able to hold on to him because he's a younger guy, that you solidify the quarterback position for another 15 years. That would be a huge move, but I think that they would have to give up a lot. And I don't know that they have players or picks to really spare.
Well, there are some other players out there that are looking to move. The Deshaun Watson one stood out to me because he wants out. And whenever that happens, and if you're going to have a player that's refusing to play, sometimes the Texans might just take a worse deal and say, like, look, we're going to have a new coach coming in. Maybe they'll be able to use Roethlisberger for a year or two, depending on how many years he wants to play, and then get another young quarterback to try to move in and use that to make an easier transition. Because you don't want to throw Watson with a new head coach and everyone not wanting to play with him. You know what I mean? Like, the whole situation is going to blow up. And now it really comes down to how many other teams are interested. There are some other ones. We talked about Sam Darnold before. The Jets could potentially look to move him and trade or draft a new quarterback, depending on what the Jaguars do. The 49ers are still looking to move on from Garoppolo, which is crazy because they were in the Super Bowl. They publicly court Tom Brady, which has to destroy their locker room. And now they're still actively being like, yo, you're not going to be the guy that wins us the Super Bowl, even though he was pretty close. They're like, please, there's someone better out there. But in the meantime, you're still here. And like, that's never worked either in history. You don't have a coach that's like
what Baltimore did to Trent Dilfer.
Oh, I could say maybe the Steve Young situation. But they had already had that planned out. Like, he was already on the 49ers when they were like, Joe Montana, please get out of here. And then it worked out. They won the Super Bowl and Joe Montana never won another one. But like, they had a quarterback there that they needed to move on. You could also say the same with like whenever the Packers picked Aaron Rodgers, won a Super Bowl. Brett Favre came close with the Vikings, didn't get it done. I think they lost in the NFC Championship game. But the 49ers with Garoppolo, they don't have another backup guy like ready to go, from my knowledge. I don't think they're going to be rolling with CJ Beathard. But that's just something that if you're looking at the quarterback thing, this Ben Roethlisberger thing is going to play out this offseason. He said he wants to return. He knows it's going to be a reduced salary. They could do a sign and trade and already have it worked out with the team where maybe you're not giving up draft picks, but like, what if you just did a twofer and tried to do a same? I would assume they can do the sign and trade multiple, but you could try to get Juju on a longer term contract and move to like a Texans team where you're saying like, look, we're going to give you two guys. It's going to free up a bunch of space for us. We're going to get Deshaun Watson back in return. And I think that could work out. It just really comes down to, do they have another piece to throw with them? Because like I had said before on the show, I wouldn't sign Juju back. And I'm wondering if they're looking at doing that and moving a quarterback in. I still would be going for, I know the Stafford thing didn't work out because that was a crazy return they got. But I think the Steelers could make some moves where, honestly, I'm not going to be excited if Roethlisberger's bringing it in because this was the best year to show that. They start undefeated. They get into the playoffs and what? One and done again. It's almost like the same exact thing. It's very similar to like a Jim Harbaugh Michigan. You can start the season great, but if you're losing at the end of the season and then losing your bowl game or your playoff game, that's it. There's only so much level of excitement where you're saying like, this is our ceiling. Like, perfect. At that point, it's like, move on, make some changes, get another quarterback in there that can potentially not be injured because they're old in the playoffs. And I hate to say it because I like Ben, but it's been a decade. So that trend isn't changing. So anything else you got on that before we move on?
No.
All right, I did have one other thing. I almost stopped, but I figured I'd let you go first. The Steelers promoted Adrian Clem to the offensive line coach. So I'm not sure if that's going to make a big deal moving forward, but I wanted to mention it. Moving into my main topic this week, EA Sports announced that they're bringing back NCAA football. I don't know why they picked now to announce it. I know that they're doing like an EA Sports shareholders meeting, but some key things stood out to this because to me, this is a big deal whenever you're talking about paying players. in college. They're going to go ahead and change the name from NCAA Football to EA Sports College Football. They said that there's going to be over 100 teams that have signed on. Now, just to let everyone know, they could have been creating this game for however many years, 7 years now, that there hasn't been one, 8 years. They could have done this all along. They didn't think that it would sell, which means I don't think you're going to see a game this year. I would be shocked if we saw one next year.
Well, they said it was going to be 2 to 3 years out.
Yeah, I think that I didn't see a timeline, but I think what they're waiting on, I think they announced it now to put pressure on the lawsuit with the NCAA. Because I think what you're going to see, and you've seen it with Madden right now, where they've just monetized the game where it's crazy. So if you think you're going to go back to where you can just customize everything and create your own dynasty and have full control, I don't think you're going to see that. So I'm excited, but I want to see what they roll out, because as a company, I just haven't trusted them. If you play any of the newer Madden games, it just doesn't have that feel. Everything's like too slow, like can't get into game mode. Too many like movies and all this other theatrics. Can't do the things in Dynasty that you want to do, or franchise mode, where you used to be able to be right into a draft, starting the franchise in no time and going through and almost like a sim, doing like the coach only mode. And it seems like every year they cut more and more of that out and put more and more of their card slash whatever their season mode into it, where you're like a rookie coming in, which is fine. But for college football, I'm wondering if A, they don't have all the teams right now, because that's going to be a big one. And I could see a team like Michigan not signing for some godforsaken reason, where they're like, we're for the sport. And then every other team is in there. And then after they realize that the other teams are getting money, then they're in like the next year. But the first one, the way they didn't say we have all whatever D1 teams signed up, I think there was 117, probably 120 something now. They didn't say that for a reason. Not all of them have signed on yet. Because what they have to do, instead of before, they have to basically pay for a license for each school. And then they get to use their uniform, their stadium, their name. And they could have done that in starting with like 2015 after the Denard year, and just went ahead and built that game. But they said that people wouldn't play it. And so I'm wondering now if this is kind of just like an announcement, let's get some hype. And if the NCAA doesn't allow players to make money, we're not going to see the game. Because I could see them offering like their same trading cards for Madden, where you're paying to get player likeness put back into the game as like an extra. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen, Matt. So pump the brakes on this. I know a lot of people are excited, but like I said, this deal could have happened years ago. And you saw it with Madden. Like they have certain teams from college that they have in there. Like I know you could be like a Texas Longhorn that one year and go through like the franchise mode. And even we talked about it last summer. I went through the mode and you could pick a couple of college teams. That's because those are the teams that signed up for it. There's like 10 of them. So now they're just adding more teams in, fake guys. We'll see if it happens, but I wanted to bring that up first before going to the Super Bowl talk, because just in terms of sports, I think having like the video game gets younger kids into the sport, and you haven't seen a lot of that for football lately. Like Madden used to be so hyped up. I see more hype for like FIFA and 2K basketball now. So they got to do something, because if you lose the younger fans, then your sport's going to decline like baseball. Getting in the Super Bowl. What are your thoughts going in, Matt? Who do you have winning this?
I like the youth going with Kansas City.
You're not going with Tom Brady?
No.
The Kansas City's favored to win. Is that why you're picking him? You're going by the line?
I just think it's too storybook to have Tampa go back to their home stadium and win it.
But you don't think that Kansas City winning back-to-back for Andy Reid is even more of a better storybook? Because, like, when's the last time we've had a back-to-back champ? It's been a long time, right?
Yeah.
Would it have been Brady? I didn't look at the list.
Well, yeah, that's an easy one to throw out there.
I don't know if he ever won back-to-back. Because I know that they had, like, a couple of different run-ins with, like, the Giants in between. So, let's see. I don't know if this is sorted by winners or not. Yeah, the winning team. So you would have had Eagles in between, Seahawks in between. Yeah, all the way back to 2004 and 2005. The Patriots, they did it one time. And then before that were the John Elway ones with the Broncos. So Patrick Mahomes, like I said, if he wins, he's only 25. He has 2 Super Bowl wins. He's only 4 away from tying Tom Brady. I think that that's the guy then you look at. The Chiefs locked him up for, what was it, a 10-year contract last year that was almost ridiculous. But it's like the opposite of what other teams are doing now. They're signing big deals, and then they're looking to move him in a couple years. So I think if he wins it, the Chiefs win that deal. Because he could just ride it out and not win another Super Bowl. He's already in all the Allstate commercials. He would be even more hyped up than Aaron Rodgers. Because I still think whenever you watch a game, the commentators, for whatever reason, still love Aaron Rodgers. His own family doesn't even love him, Matt. But the commentators for NFL, they love him. So why are you laughing at that? That's a true story. Look that up if you don't believe me. He has like beef with his family. So Aaron Rodgers has so much hype from just like Chris Collinsworth, Troy Aikman, all those guys that do the game, that no matter how many times he chokes in the playoffs, they still remember like that one good year he had. So I think Patrick Mahomes, he's going to have potentially 2 good years to start off his career. The man could do no wrong, Matt. He's like doing the funny commercials already. And normally when you're doing the commercials, you're not focused for the game. So that's why you get your 1 Super Bowl, like Aaron Rodgers, starts the commercials, and then that's it. Career over. So that's why I'm thinking if Mahomes wins this one, he's only 4 away, and he has years to do it, and Tom Brady can't play forever. So who's going to stop him?
I think it would be interesting because I think there's enough youth right now on Kansas City's roster with their skill players that they could go on a run with the core group of people on this team that would be comparable to what New England was able to do. But I don't think that gets off the ground unless they win they win on Sunday.
But I think that's the big thing. They have to win because if they lose, then they have, I'm pretty sure they're going to have contracts come up in a year or 2. If they lose, the target's on their back. What else are they going to do? I just don't know. So I honestly think that you're going to see fall off from both teams after this year. I mean, I could be wrong because the Chiefs have more, but like the Buccaneers, they're not going to be back. If Tom Brady comes back, I wouldn't say never because the guy seems to be ageless. And it usually takes a season to get acquainted with your players because wouldn't that be crazy if Tampa Bay came back and was like the number 1 seed next year in the NFC? Because, and I don't know how many of those guys that got, like Fournette, is he on a loaner? But that's the one things that I think we have to look at going forward because you have 2 teams in the NFC. I know that Detroit made their moves or whatever, but there's no other team that really stands out and says like, yes, they're a competing team. You have Green Bay. But like I said with Aaron Rodgers, like who's going to stand in their way? At least in the AFC, I think you're going to have a lot more competition for the Chiefs because outside of that, I don't know, like going forward, if there are going to be like younger teams. I know Trevor Lawrence is coming in. Most likely he's going to be in the AFC. You also have potentially the Jets taking another young quarterback. So some of these younger guys that are going to be battling. If the Steelers move Ben Roethlisberger, is he even going to be a threat? Lamar Jackson with the Ravens right now. You have the Bills. I just think the AFC is going to have more competition for whatever reason. It seems like they've had more competition for the last decade, if not longer. Since Tom Brady and Peyton Manning have been battling, I think the AFC has been the harder division to win. And that's the only reason why I think Mahomes might have a tougher run at it. Because just to get back to the Super Bowl has been like the thorn in the side of so many different teams. Do you agree?
Oh, I definitely think so, because what ends up happening for a lot of teams is they win the Super Bowl and then immediately the coordinators are gone. At least one or two players get poached away. It's like they just pick apart the team that wins the Super Bowl. And I think with what you've seen in Kansas City, they've stayed pretty much intact. I know we talked about Kansas City's offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy's still sticking around. He hasn't been offered a head job yet. They still had their quarterback, still have their head coach, still have all their main pieces. That it makes sense that they just continued right along with where they left off last season.
And that's why I think, like, if Mahomes wins this one and everyone's back for another year or two, let's say they get 3 early, they could go through the transition phase as long as he stays healthy, and then in a few years have another run. I mean, that's what Drew Brees kind of did. He won the one Super Bowl. They had some fallout, and then he's been dangerous the last couple of years. Just hasn't been able to compete or complete the run, having like crazy no pass interferences. What was it? The Vikings took that one pass against them all the way to the house. This year, this year he just looked like he was toast. But there's so many things that could go wrong or right. You just have to stay healthy and then hope that you have the weapons. But, he did have the concussion, but Andy Reid has kept him pretty healthy. Just with the quick reads, getting the ball out, and things like that. And so that's the one thing that I want to see the Chiefs do more of. Because compared to a guy like Lamar Jackson, I know they're trying to keep him like fresh. Even Deshaun Watson takes a lot of hits, has had injuries. That's another thing, like circling back to the Steelers. If they could get him, great. You said they might have a guy for 15 years. I doubt it. I could see him maybe 7. This is off the top of my head. Like, I don't think he'd be around for another decade. And if he stays with the Texans, or they can't move him, just because of how many other young quarterbacks are out there right now, he doesn't really have many other landing spots. Like, they could try to make a move for Garoppolo. Okay, cool. I don't think the Jets would try to trade for him because I think they're going to try to do a complete rebuild. And just looking around the rest of the league, maybe the Patriots. I know I saw someone made a fake announcement that the Patriots were going to make a move for Aaron Rodgers. That could potentially be another move because you don't know what he's doing late in his career. Would he be willing to get out of Green Bay? They really didn't answer any questions after that game. And that's been another potential rumor, which I think that would be hilarious if he moved to the AFC, because then it'd be even more stacked. Like, what would stop Tom Brady? He would just be salivating. Like, oh yeah, baby. I made the right move. Everyone else is getting out of the NFC, and here I am, ready to take it on. But I don't know. Something to think about, because the Super Bowl this year, it seems like in past years, like you said, it was either like, oh, Tom Brady's here again with the Patriots. They're always going to be a team, but it's like the Eagles. What are they going to do? Could they come back? It's like, nah, they made all the wrong moves. Now they're building around Wentz. It's like, is that even going to be a thing? They're building around him, yet he has to compete for his job. That never works. It's like the Seahawks, potentially, they win the one Super Bowl. Oh, they're going to be back. Maybe, I don't know. The Broncos, they had a couple chances, but that was just because of Peyton Manning. They're another situation. Would they take a move? and try to get like someone like Deshaun Watson? I don't know if that's a move that John Elway would like to take. To be honest, if Aaron Rodgers wants to move, the Broncos would make that move. Everyone seems to love Aaron Rodgers that played like in the 90s. John Elway fits that time frame. He just makes the move and he's like in love with them. They're like hanging out together.
You know, the more you're talking right now, the two teams up towards the top, the Jets and Jags, they could potentially trade their younger quarterback, either Donald or Minshew, to Pittsburgh for Roethlisberger, and then be able to use that early pick on a younger quarterback and then not have to start him. With the understanding that Roethlisberger, even if he plays 2 years, gives that younger quarterback a chance to develop under the system. Take your pick of which quarterback you like. That's a scenario that makes sense, that you're not forcing them, because I don't know if there's a quarterback that you instantly plug and play with the Jets or the Jags that makes them a more competitive team. I think there's too many other, they're missing too many other skilled players to immediately be competitive right out the gate. So you kind of buy yourself some time, while at the same time, like for the Jets to keep Darnold and then draft Lawrence, or take your pick of whichever quarterback is there. It doesn't make sense, because all it's going to do is it's going to create a situation like you have in Philly, where there's Wentz and there's Hurts, and now you move on to the other quarterback, and now you're sitting there with, what do you do with the other guy? And I think it's a difficult situation.
Well, that's the one where they would have to be on the losing end of that trade, because like that would immediately favor Pittsburgh, because like you said, they need to get Roethlisberger in to work with those players, and you would have to have a coach that trusts Roethlisberger to show like that leadership. He hasn't, to be honest, appeared to be that type of quarterback. Like he hasn't been helping Mason Rudolph. He hasn't been helping like the other quarterbacks on the Steelers roster. So if you're going to trade to have a guy that you drafted in the top 2 to not play, I honestly think that that's a risky move for either of them. I think it worked for like Aaron Rodgers because he was a late first round pick. They got him as he slipped. And so there was really no pressure to play him. If they trade, like if the Jaguars picked Lawrence number 1, Roethlisberger comes in, has a 4 interception game, they'd be eating his $40 million contract for no reason, because all the fans would immediately want Urban to play Trevor Lawrence. Now, the Jets are another interesting thing, because they haven't said that they're going to take a quarterback. And if the Steelers are saying like, all right, well, we don't really care if we get a quarterback in return, because we're going to let Haskins battle Rudolph, and that's going to be our guy. Like Rudolph's going to be number 1, but we brought in Haskins. Let's see what he can do. And then they look and they say, like, look, we're just going to trade him and we want to get picks in return. Maybe the Jets do that. And then they're like, okay, if we don't get Lawrence, we're going to make this move and bring in Roethlisberger, and we're going to see if he can help train Sam Darnold. Because he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been great either. So let's give him 2 more years and see what happens. Because if he's a late bloomer, like you never know, he could stick around, just learn a little bit, because I think that's one of his biggest issues. I saw it at USC where he's not reading the field. And he's still young enough where a move like that makes sense. And I think that could work out, because he's only 23. I just looked up to see if he turned 24 yet. His birthday's in June, so he would be 24 this year. I mean, then you're looking at a guy that's coming in like 26. I think that could work out in the Jets' favor. Like, hey, this guy can win a little bit. Let's bring in a quarterback, trade some pieces, or whatever the Steelers want in return. Maybe Steelers want some defensive players or something. They get rid of their cap space, so it works out for both teams. The Jets keep their number 1 draft pick, or number 2 draft pick, and drop the defender. or a lineman, and then go that rebuild route while they have Roethlisberger that's going to get them an immediate better season than what they're used to. And so I think that could work. Another team that's kind of sneaky out there, why not the Redskins? If we're talking about moving Roethlisberger.
You mean the Washington football team?
Oh, yeah, did I say the Redskins? So they had Alex Smith. He's injured. And they could say, like, all right, thanks for coming. Like, you're not going to be the guy that's taking us to the next round. He stayed out of their playoff game for whatever reason, injured. But they just bring in Roethlisberger. Ron Rivera seems to be the type of guy that just lets his quarterbacks go, do whatever they want to do, because it worked for, like, Cam Newton. Could you imagine if he had, like, a better version of Cam Newton with Roethlisberger that's able to just lead the team down the field with no run game? Like, that would instantly take them from a playoff team to a contender next year if they can get some extra weapons with them. And maybe they don't have the cap room. I don't know, because I'm throwing this off the top of my head. But that's another one where you're looking at the NFC right now. Breeze retired. There's an opening. The NFC East is garbage. So if the Redskins or Washington was able to bring in Roethlisberger, instant favorites in the league or the division. Like, instant favorites in my mind. I don't care who else they have. That division was so bad, they would be the instant favorites to win it and potentially be a top seed just because they get to play and feast on those other teams in that division. So, I mean, the Giants are still young too, but I don't think they would try to make a move to bring one in. Maybe the Cowboys, who knows? But that's my thing. This Super Bowl is a Super Bowl of quarterback. It's a big quarterback matchup. So I still say I got to go. I want my man Tom Brady to win, but I've been picking against him, and it's been paying off. So I'm going to pick Chiefs. Chiefs in a blowout. No, because then the Buccaneers might make it close, and then they'll be like, yeah, that's a win. Remember, you said it was going to be a blowout. They only won by 3 in the regular season, the Chiefs did. So I'll say that it's similar to that, and I'm hoping my man Tom Brady comes through, wins that 7th Super Bowl. If he wins 7, then you're pretty much like on the area of never being touched. Because, like, Mahomes is showing right now that if you win a couple young enough and they draft you and you're able to take a hit where you're not the number 1 pick or something, where the rest of the roster is built around you, because they got him, in the teens. So they had other pieces in place, roster locked down. They paid less for him, signed him to a mega contract because he had roster room because of that. And now they're set up to win a couple championships when he's younger. That's the way a quarterback can tie Tom Brady's record of Super Bowl wins. I'm not talking about his 10 appearances, because like I said with the LeBron thing, you got to win them. You might be able to play in the weaker division and get there every year, but you got to win them. So that's my thought on it. You got anything else for the Super Bowl?
Just, I'm excited to see it. I think this should be one of the better Super Bowls, because I think with the offenses that we have, I think you're going to see a high-scoring Super Bowl. So if you're a bettor, I would say take the over.
And that Super Bowl will end 14-17.
You're probably right.
They played, it was 27-24. Everyone thought it was going to be in the 30s. They expected the Chiefs to kill them, though. But that's the one thing. Pivoting on this, because I mean, we talked a bunch of the Super Bowl last week, so if you want to listen to that, go in. Very pro Tom Brady and his appearance, but listen to that to get ready for the game. The Pro Bowl was supposed to be this week because they had moved it before, right? Yeah. They move the Pro Bowl around all the time, so I'm not really sure, but they canceled and make it virtual. Did you watch anything with that, Matt?
No.
Why not?
The Pro Bowl has always been one of those that I haven't had as much of a. We've talked about it on the show. It just seems like it's been a blow off, and nobody really takes it seriously. And I think it would be better off being done as, like what you had said, like a skills thing.
Well, that's what they tried to do this year. So if my memory is not wrong, the Pro Bowl used to be after the Super Bowl. So
Yes.
you could play in the Super Bowl and then be in the Pro Bowl.
Yes.
And it was like a reward. Everyone would go to Hawaii, and it was like a big deal to go there. For whatever reason, the NFL said, we don't want, and to be honest, it might have had something to do with like the XFL trying to throw in there. I don't know if they played before the Super Bowl or not, but like they were like, we need to get people interested in the Super Bowl by playing another game during this bye week. Why don't we move the Pro Bowl there and try to get more interest in it? And I don't think it worked, because then you're not seeing the best of the best. Like the best players are going to be playing in the Super Bowl most of the time. At least one or two of the best players, because otherwise, how are they getting there? Like, it's not like you have a bunch of scrubs, because like even when Trent Dilfer, not the best quarterback, led the Ravens to the Super Bowl, they still had a killer defense that would have had a ton of Pro Bowlers on that team. Whether it was played before or after that year, I don't remember. But that's the team that comes to mind, where you have a quarterback that's not that big, and there's going to be Pro Bowlers that are missing. So you start with that. Then they try to do like the draft thing, and that's where they really lost me, where it wasn't like an AFC versus NFC type thing, because I think that that's where you can get a lot of debate. Like I've been saying, the NFC seems like it's weaker, but if you go to the Pro Bowl and the NFC absolutely crushes the AFC, then you're like, oh, maybe they do have a lot of better players. Maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's this. Maybe it is just the quarterback, the lack of quarterbacks. Maybe a guy like Tom Brady jumping into the NFC, maybe they're in a better position to win. We don't know. And so now you don't really see that anymore. And so doing the skills thing, great. But in the age of social media, it's still going to be tough to get people to watch. And so that's the one thing that stands out to me, because you have all kind of college skill games going on, and even games that have been playing this year. Like, great. If you want to watch actual football, you can watch that. What's the difference? I mean, they try to do like the player pick, or like people voting online. They see who can go. I mean, Major League Baseball has really been pushing that, where the fans decide, but you don't really know if you decide. You don't know if your votes are really counting, because there's no like audit of them. Someone could just be making up the totals, or they could just have bots filling it out to whoever they want there. So it's almost like, am I really interested in these games that are more of just like a promotion for the players? And that's what the skills this year kind of looked like to me when they were talking about it. Like, oh, we're going to do wide receiver drills. And I saw some of the highlights, and it was almost like, why would I watch that? If you want the best highlights, you can just go on YouTube and actually watch highlights from the game. Like, I think they have to do something almost like a skills type competition, almost like the Olympics or something, where you're having players race. And I don't know. They tried to do some of that before with their skills competitions, where they had like an obstacle course. You had to catch so many balls before you moved on. But I still think you need to bring in rivalries and do it by team. That's kind of too hard sometimes. So maybe I don't know. I'm thinking maybe crossover teams. Like you have the Steelers take on their rival, maybe the Ravens. But the Steelers are going to team up with an NFC team from the West. So every year it's the same. Like every year in the Pro Bowl, you have the Steelers and the 49ers players or someone. They team up, and they're going to play their rivals, the Ravens and the Seahawks. Then you might get some people interested, because you're like, damn, do I hate the Ravens. I'm going to watch this to see if the Steelers can beat them. And then you have the other team to help fill out some of like the positions or whatever. I don't know. I mean, you might have to have more teams on a pod. But I think I even mentioned that before, now that I talk about it. But I figured I'd bring it up, see what your thoughts were, because that wasn't interesting to me. Anything else for the NFL?
No.
All right. A little off topic, but still NFL related. Tom Brady has been, I mean, he's been in the news so much that they said that his jersey sales are like through the roof this year. And so I wanted to bring up one of the other big topics that people have been talking about. Tom Brady wants to play till he's 45. So I talked last week about how, Tom Brady, you know what he should do? Win the Super Bowl and then just go ahead and retire. Well, he said he's not even thinking about that at all. He's going to win and he's going to play at least until he's 45. So if he wins the Super Bowl, he could be back next year. If Aaron Rodgers leaves the NFC, who's stopping him? No one. I don't know how many people the Buccaneers lose, but they kind of went all in for a 1 or 2 year run, and they might be getting that. It was announced that he is a fan favorite. He is the best-selling NFL player ever for this pre-Super Bowl lead-up. So playoffs, that's according to what does this even say? I don't think it says. Fanatics, the Football Fanatics website, where they said that he's been selling more jerseys, T-shirts, and other items related to him. It doesn't say what they are. Signed football is probably the most. So he has the record now, which is crazy because you would think Patrick Mahomes is the up-and-coming guy. But I think a lot of people are finally just like, that guy, I've been watching him for so many years. I think a lot of people are secretly rooting for him to win. What do you think?
I think there's, for as many people that want to see him win, I think you have just as many that want to see him lose too.
You mean Patriots fans? Because I would argue most people hate the Patriots and they still hate Belichick. Seeing Tom Brady leave, I think it kind of puts them on edge where they're like, did I really hate Tom Brady? He doesn't seem like a bad guy. He's out there making teammates better. He's not being a jerk. He's not out committing crimes. So it's like, he's not out making excuses. Then you watch Bill Belichick's behavior and you're like, maybe it was a Spygate guy. Maybe it wasn't the Deflategate guy. Maybe the deflated balls didn't have anything to do with it. So that's my thing. The one big thing that keeps coming up this week is Tom Brady's diet, which, as a coach, Matt, I wanted to get your thoughts on this because I've had a couple people ask me about this. I thought, and I know we talked about this, I don't know if it was before the show, but when he first announced his plan, his TB12 diet or whatever, I thought it was like a $200, I don't know if it was a course, but I thought it was like a leather-bound book or something. But I tried to find it, and there's a much cheaper version now at Walmart. Have you looked into this?
No.
Why not? You're a coach. You need to optimize recovery, pliability, and what else? And performance. What?
I'm just have not looked into it.
So here's what his diet is. I think you should. So he's focused mainly on hydration. He says he takes electrolyte drinks, which could just be Gatorade. But that's his main thing, is that he's drinking water, half your body weight in pounds. That's how many ounces you drink. So if you weigh 100 pounds, if I'm calculating this right, then you would drink 100 ounces of water daily because of your workout. If you're not working out, then you probably don't need that much water. But after his workout, he drinks like a little shake, but it's mainly his electrolyte drink to keep staying active. And then he does the regular things where he's eating fresh fruit, vegetables, seeds, nuts at 80%, but he still eats meat. 20% of his diet's meat. Because a lot of people, they're like weird about that. They don't want to eat the red meat, but Tom Brady still says that he eats it. And he says that he eats until he's only 75% full, and that's when he stops. So, is that a strategy you think would work with young athletes, like high school?
If you have the ability to cut yourself off at 75% full, then probably.
I'm sure that he's he has a guy measuring it out for him. So he probably tracks his weight every day, like a boxer would.
Without a doubt.
So I don't think that he's just like, you know what? I probably need one more slice of pizza. Like that. I'm at 69% right now, Matt. I need to eat this piece of pizza. I'll be about 75%, and then I'll call it a night. Because his other thing is make sure you don't eat before going to bed and don't have coffee or caffeine after noon. So like do that stuff in the morning if you wanted. He said he didn't drink coffee, from what I've read. But then get a good night's sleep. Because he says like recovery is the best. And I think that's where a lot of people, that's where they fail. So I think that would be good advice for people that aren't even athletes. Where if you're drinking coffee like myself right now to get pumped up for the show at 9 o'clock at night, probably a bad move. And you're probably going to have a bad night's sleep. So I thought I'd bring it into the show as a little bit of mix up instead of just the football talk, because we haven't had a game to talk about or break down. So let's look at how he got there. But I didn't see anything crazy about it. It's really coming up. I mean, I guess the merchandise sales, people are seeing how old he is and are going into it. It looks like 2017 is when this came out. So we would have been doing the show. So we must have talked about it on the show, I would think. I'm not going back to look. But that's the number one thing, where mainly fresh, plant-based food. He's not afraid to eat meat. But make sure you eat everything and get a good mix. The one thing that he cuts out, though, is any inflammatory foods, which I'd have to look at the science behind that. I don't know if he's making that up or if he has scientists telling him not to do that. But that includes sugars, refined carbs, processed meat, fried food, which in the South, how can you do that? And then alcohol, which if you're an athlete, you probably shouldn't be boozing it up anyway. Stay out of trouble. So anything else you want to talk about that or getting ready? Because it's off season for high schoolers. And I know we have some younger listeners. So what's your advice to have them get in shape? Because you need to start now, to be honest. If you're working out, it's the off season. I think a lot of college programs traditionally have been in workout mode right now. I don't know with this year with the limitations and stuff on campus, but what's your advice going into this off season, Matt?
I would say going into the off season, as long as you're maintaining some kind of weightlifting program, I think that's obviously the key. But then to take it a step further, the next step in that is making sure that you have a good diet. And when you're a multimillionaire, it's easier to have access to a lot of the healthier foods. So it's taking advantage of what you do have available to you. You know, obviously the more fruits and vegetables you can eat, the better it is. Looking at the timing of your food, of like your post-workout meal recovery snacks, like being able to have like a protein shake or something after to help with the rebuilding of your muscles is going to be a positive thing. And just being like, to me, the thing that I think a lot of high school kids don't do, and adults as well, is drink enough water. And if you're drinking iced tea or like other sodas, things like that, and you're not getting enough water, then it's going to affect your performance.
And that's the one thing that I know that I don't do. And I figured I'd bring this in anyway, because if you listen to the show last summer, there wasn't a lot of sports going on. I decided to just randomly run a 10K, and it took me, a month to get in shape for that. So I'm thinking this year, I'm wondering if the Big Ten's going to have their 10K again. And if it's going to be virtual, I'm going to try to do it. But now's whenever I'm going to start actively working out. I've already started doing it since, after Christmas break. So doing a couple weeks. I haven't ran because it's been blistering cold in the morning when I wake up down here in the South. I know you'd probably laugh at me when I say like, oh, it's too cold for me to run. But hasn't had any snow. It's starting to warm back up in the middle of the day. So if I was ever able to do that, that's going to be my next plan. Hopefully it picks up and I can start running in the mornings again. But hydration is the one thing that I noticed just going down through my list of notes from last year is when I was training to run, I'd run, make sure I was drinking multiple cups of water. I actually have like Garmin fitness band that I've been using, and it has a GPS built in that tracks your run so you can see how far you're running, but it also has a counter for water. So I'm going to try to start doing that. So that's my challenge to people that are listening to the show. If you want to start getting into shape, like Matt said, you can start lifting some weights, do some push-ups, anything to start with. If you can't run, if it's too cold, but start to up your water intake, because I found last year whenever I was drinking more water, I wasn't as hungry and I wasn't reaching for, like, say, another coffee or whatever. Of course, in the winter, I fell out of the habit. So I'm going to try to do it. The other thing I did do last summer, and I didn't look at Tom Brady's thing before, is I started to drink more like electrolyte type drinks. I tried Gatorades, and I tried some other ones that I got on Amazon that were like kind of weird, like mix-in ones. So I was kind of doing the same thing. Great minds think alike, me and Tom Brady. That's my last note on this. Do you have anything else, Matt? What are you laughing at?
No, I will say, like, and again, a lot of this is dependent on the person, but I've also personally just been a fan of the intermittent fasting, and being that I'm not an athlete in season, it's easier for me just to maintain eating, one bigger meal in the evening and just going with minimal food during the day. And I found that for me, energy wise, like when I'm eating smaller meals throughout the day, that I'm a lot tireder during the day. So I find it more beneficial for myself to just hold off, just pig out at the end of the day. And then you just sleep it all off.
When do you work out, though?
Right now I'm kind of in recovery mode. So I've just been, instead of running, I've been having to go get up earlier and go walk because of some nagging injuries. So once I get back on track, it's usually I work out in the mornings and then get after it the rest of the day.
Because that's the one thing that I knew Tom Brady has luxury of just working out in the mornings, but it seemed like that's when he would try to do his workouts so that he could then have a lunch and dinner and kind of follow similar to what you had for the meal, which I wonder if because I know most people don't have that luxury though, where you can just work out in the morning, drink a bunch of water, rest, and then get your recovery meal in or whatever, and then eat your main nutrition at night. If you can't get that workout in, because I wonder if some people have to work out after work, and then they're already hungry going into it or something. So that might change. So I was just curious. But I am curious of other people too. Like if you have a routine that you've been following that works out well, let us know. Because I think this is going to be something that we talk about in the off season. Because I know like Matt's always looking for stuff to get his players in shape. And it's going to be a good topic with people and I guess businesses and stuff opening back up this year. So it'll be a good thing. So we'll be circling back around on this. Some other off topic, well, I guess not really off topic. The Penguins, Jim Rutherford surprisingly stepped down last week. I think it was like right after the show, like almost a week ago. And I thought at first it was for health reasons because you don't just step down in the middle of the season. There's been some rumors that potentially it has to do with some missed deals. I don't know how true that is, but I figured we'll bring it up as we see about it. Steps down. Not sure what that means for the future of the Penguins, as he was pretty great as GM. Got them a couple cups. He arrived in 2014. He said it was personal reasons. I just really don't think that he was pushed out, but I could be wrong. Do you have any thoughts on that, Matt?
Yeah, I'd kind of heard some rumors that they were trying to move Letang, and when that fell through, they kind of, the owners or management or whoever they may be kind of pushed them out. I don't know if that's true, but if you look at what the the way that they've moved coaches, they've moved players, it wouldn't surprise me if there was something that they were trying to get done and it ended up falling through, that they're looking to make changes. I trust what the Penguins do because they've had success with it.
And that's something that I also wanted to bring up. Just sticking with Pittsburgh stuff, with the Pirates making all their trades and how they can't ever better the roster, they have to do a complete rebuild. They're also competing with teams like the Cardinals, and I know you wanted to talk about this too, where they just made a big deal preseason, where a lot of people are saying, like, how are the Cardinals? And the one thing that came up to me that I wanted to bring up before I let you get into this, everyone's saying, like, oh, St. Louis is a small market team. And the small market, big market thing just annoys me because the media landscape has changed. You don't make your money from like your small market, like your radio shows or whatever. I understand that the Yankees make a lot more, but if you really had a team that you could put together and market, which in baseball, there's no limits to that, you could potentially be a team that transcends all that and becomes the biggest team in the country. Look at what Golden State did. I know they're in a bigger market, but when they had their little run, everyone was loving them. It didn't matter where they were from. Some people probably didn't even know where they were located. They didn't know where Golden State was. And almost like what LeBron did when he went to Miami. I know Miami's another bigger city, but baseball, with no limits, they could be doing super teams and marketing the hell out of them. And I think that's where you see a lot of just the old baseball writers talk about, oh, big market, small market. Pirates are a small market. You look at the TV numbers, they're like third or fourth in TV viewership. That's not a small market thing anymore. Like TV is where you make most of your money in college. In college football, if you're a top 4 team in TV viewership, you're Alabama. I mean, let's be honest here, or LSU, or Ohio State or Michigan. Like those are the big 4. Notre Dame. Like that's going to be it. The Pirates can't capitalize on that though because they don't reinvest in their teams. I don't know why people continue to watch, but if you're a potential owner, you have to look at that and say, all right, everyone makes their money from television right now. We're completely blowing it by signing a deal with AT&T. I mean, if they have the viewership, I know ESPN would kind of eat it up. Major League Baseball doesn't seem to really care. Like, why not just try to get on ESPN and try to build that brand where you're just the Pirates? Because the Steelers people watch the Steelers everywhere. And so if a team really wanted to get out of that small market, they could do it. And just seeing what the Cardinals are doing, as a Pirates fan, you have to just shake your head and say, you know what? Like, we're not even trying to compete at this point. But go ahead, Matt. I know you wanted to talk about what the Cardinals pulled off.
I don't even know how to say it other than, was it highway robbery? I mean, they gave up a pile of prospects, but they got one of the best third basemen in baseball, in Aranda. They absorbed part of his contract, and they gave up a bunch of prospects, as opposed to Pittsburgh, who, had the shoe been on the other foot, would have been on the giving end of all of those prospects. You know, I think at some point you have to look at, do you want to win right now? And obviously the Cardinals made the move to be the competitive team. I don't think just in the NL Central, but I think in the National League period.
And I think that's the one thing too. We talk about the divide between football with the AFC and the NFC. In baseball with like the NL, you don't have as many teams trying to compete from like a big money market standpoint because the Yankees and the Red Sox are in the AL. You have potentially the Cubs that are going to throw their weight around, but traditionally and even historically, they haven't been able to get that success to help build off that. So the Cardinals, they have a winning franchise. They're bringing things in. If you're talking about small markets, they're basically the Steelers of Major League Baseball. Winning a bunch of championships, always seeming to compete. Everyone kind of just writes them off, but then they're always there. And it's like, oh, they did win a bunch. Like, they could win this year. And so that's how I feel about them. And so that's what I'm just wondering, what, like a team like Pittsburgh, if they really wanted to, that's what they could do. But I don't know. It's just crazy that you have a team that's able to just make the moves and then let's see what happens. Because they're making the moves, and I found the thing here where it says, in the country, like Mike Trout, only 1% of counties in the United States air a quarter of his games. And I know baseball has a lot more. But like, they couldn't even, if the Pirates brought a guy in, they wouldn't even have to be on Mike Trout's level. But if they really wanted to take advantage now with the way social media and all these other broadcasting things they could think outside the box. They already have all of like the television stuff in the stadium for whatever Major League Baseball makes them do. Stream it on like Amazon Prime. Put it on Twitter. I know Pac-12 has been dealing with that. They lost their commissioner. There's a lot of other things you can do. And so just to watch the Cardinals pull this trade off, and I mean, it's just a history of great trades by them. It's just frustrating them. Frustrating. The quote is that the trade frustrates the Rockies too, but, quote, things do change. That's what their ownership said, Matt. Very Pirates-esque, right? Like, I got to get rid of our guys, but, things change. Oh, and Archer, great steal by the Pirates, by the way. He signed back a 1-year deal with Tampa Bay. Back to where he belongs. Awful, awful deal that people were thinking was a great trade. Awful. Or was that a free agent signing? Whatever. Either way, that was a poor Pirates move. And I brought in the stats when it happened, showing that his stats had declined every year. So that's my last baseball thing. You have anything else on it?
No, that was the big thing that I wanted to bring up, was just the difference in style. And that's why I really like what St. Louis is doing, because they've had issues since Pujols has left with power in the lineup, and then they go and actively address it, just kind of solidifying that point that I had previously made, where as opposed to just giving everything away or just like pouting about it, so to speak, yeah, they're actually making moves and trying to do things to improve the roster.
And like I said, you're looking at a team like this that they have the roster and the talent and everything, that they're able to make those moves without relying only on their farm system. Because at some point, you have to just take that and go to the next level. But they're not able to do it. Lost Matt's connection again. Our last topic, college football signing day preview. We used to have complete shows built around college football signing day, but now that the NCAA has changed the rule where they sign in December, right in the middle of when bowl games and playoff prep is coming, it's very hard to cover. But I did want to make a note to end the show, because this is the last thing that I have. Most of the top players have signed already. In the top 10, there's one unsigned. And if you go just through the list, you have to go all the way to 45 to get a second unsigned player. And then you have 48 and then 50. So what does that make? Four players in the top 5. I think I wrote up a handful of top players are going to decide tomorrow. That's it. Then you have the 5th one is in the top 87. The 6th is number 88. So there is 6 people in the top 100 players that haven't signed going into signing day tomorrow. So it's not really a big deal anymore. And I kind of hate that because you have players signing and then teams deciding, you know what? Let's just get rid of our coach. Like Texas. Like, we're going to go ahead and get rid of Tom Herman after saying that he's fine, signing a class, and then bringing in Steve Sarkisian. And now you have players that are they're gonna try to get out of that. Are they going to try to meet with the new coach? Like, what's going to be the deal? And some teams let players out, some teams don't. That's why you have is it the transfer portal? Is that what it's called? Where all the players go?
Yep.
After 1 year, it doesn't work out. That seems to just be the hot commodity. I know you always joke about Florida State just living there, but why not? If you're trying to go through a transition, why not?
But I do think that this is where some of the relationship building that you're seeing, like maybe in the current class, it's not as in your face with like it doesn't matter that you're signing the number 1 class or the number 2 class because Alabama's going to probably be the number 1. But if you're number 2 or number 3, it doesn't matter because if you lost out on a couple recruits in a year or two, you could end up like going back and re-signing that player when they hit the portal. If coaching changes or different things come, they're not seeing the amount of playing time that they wanted, and they're looking to move out. If you've developed a good relationship with those players, there's a chance that you can end up transferring to that other school and having a chance to play. So I think it puts more pressure on coaches to be honest in the recruiting process, and the ones that are just being true with what their recruiting pitches are, they're able to possibly circle back and pick up some of these recruits.
Yeah, I had a couple points on that. I wonder if that's what Georgia's issue is. I don't know if it's lying to recruits, but they seem to have trouble with their top guys just transferring out or doing whatever. And they're not even transferring. Like, it's not like Justin Fields, not a failed transfer by any means. He's like, all right, I'm going to be the guy at Georgia, or I'm just going to leave and be the guy at Ohio State. I don't even know if Ohio State was even in on his original recruitment. Like, it was like Georgia and a couple other schools that I thought he was down between. But then just because of the transfer portal, then like Ohio State's like, hey, we have an opening. Why don't you come up? And then Martell, the guy that they had, they got him on campus and they're like, this isn't going to work out. And then he's able to transfer to Miami and that doesn't work out. So he's transferring again. So, I mean, you could bounce around as many times as you want. But like you said, the top recruiting class is right now it's Alabama. Ohio State's number 2. But I was a little shocked that they announced like the All-American list for incoming guys. And I thought Ohio State only had 1 guy on that list. And so you would think with their top recruited class, like if you're in the top 2, you would think you'd have a couple, like a handful of guys, just as a comparison, because I did the count. Michigan right now is at 11th. I think they slipped because a guy flipped to Maryland or something last time because they were 10th before. But they had 3 first-team All-Americans from high school or McDonald's All-Americans, whatever, the equivalent on their class. One of them was a punter, though, so asterisk there. But 3 compared to 1, and sometimes you wonder if those top players are going to hit, and then the rest you're hoping are just projects that they're going to work out. But definitely getting the higher number of players coming in that could hit, you're going to be better off even if they don't have the clear ceiling that maybe an Alabama has with them. But we'll see what the final is going to be. I think that they're in on one of the 6 guys I said in the top 100, maybe more. I don't know if that will be enough to put them ahead of Alabama, but I don't know how much of their recruiting, or not their recruiting staff, but their coaching staff. I don't know if Urban Meyer took any of them or not, or what that situation is going forward. But we'll keep you posted. That's going to be next week's show is pretty much going to be recruiting. Those will be finalized. And then we also have the Super Bowl. So that's it. You got anything else, Matt, for the final bell?
Nope, nothing this week.
Yeah, pretty good show. Well-rounded. So thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting us. And we will see you next week.